likeness or difference in the sample for standardization process, and is done by only few selected trained panel members. Whereas in comparison to it, hedonic preferences are affective and subjective, usually done for acceptance of a product. Initial impression is important. Personal reaction or likes matter. Usually more panel members are involved. Sample is tested by people visiting a booth, usually in a crowded mall, in a school, college. Selection of panel member. American Society of Testing and Materials, ASTM. Committee E18 has given the guidelines for selection and training of sensory panel members. The selection of candidates should be based on specific personal attributes and potential capability in performing specific sensory tasks. Must be able to perform and repeat the task with consistent results. Panel members must be free from taste, odor, perception disorder, color blindness, denatured defects, frequent allergies, not to be consuming medication that affect the sensory functions. So, sensory panel members must have motivation, interest, and responsible attitude towards sensory evaluation. Panel members may be trained or randomly selected based on the type of evaluation required. Sensory methods. Discriminatory test. Simple difference. Which sample is different? Usually triangle test is performed. Do or prior test is performed. Directional difference. Which sample is sweeter? On these bases are performed. Normally paired comparison test, preference test, scoring or scaling how pungent that sample is. Sensitivity test, if a mossy aroma is perceived or not. So, indiscriminatory tests are done to determine whether the two samples are perceptibly different when two samples are chemically different, or maybe perceived as identical when there is a change in the processing method of the food product. Discriminatory tests are extremely useful for evaluation of a new improved variant of an already existing product. Hedonic tests, very useful for measuring food acceptability. You usually use 9-point hedonic scale ranging from extremely disliked to extremely liked. It is a people-oriented test with a large number of panel members, usually 50 or above. The extension of hedonic scale with 9 child-friendly expressions ranging from super good to super bad is used for kids of 5 to 10 years old children. A scale having smiley faces is also elicited good response for food acceptability from children. I have some example of hedonic scales starting from like extremely to NZ dislike extremely. Another smiley face scale starting from a happy face to NZ a sad face. Triangle test. In triangle test, panel is presented with one different and two alike samples. If possible, all three samples should be presented to a panelist at once, and the panelist should be instructed to taste the sample from left to right. The 6 possible order combinations should be randomized across the panelists. For example, A and B, the 6 possible order combinations are AAB, ABA, BAA, BBA, BAB, and ABB. The panelist is instructed to identify the odd sample and record his answer. Here is an example of triangular test conducted on Jaljeera sample. In this, panelists are given 3 coded jeera samples, Jaljeera, out of which 2 are identical and 1 is different. and they were asked to encircle which sample is different from the other two. So this indicates the degree of difference between the identical and different samples, how identical or how different it is. And at the end of the proforma, they have to mark their acceptability preference. Either the identical samples are acceptable or the different sample is more acceptable. Duo-trio test. A reference is provided with two coded samples. Is useful for products that have relatively intense taste odor, or a duo-trio test determines whether or not a sensory difference exists between two samples. This method is particularly effective when the degree or intensity of difference is not elicited. To determine whether product difference results from a change in ingredient, processing, packaging, or storage. To determine whether an overall difference exists, whether no specific attributes can be identified as having been affected. So there is an example of duo-trio test where panelists were given a control sample of potato soya gravy labeled as R. Along with that, they were given two coded test samples, out of which one is identical to R and the other is different. Paired comparison test. The paired comparison test determines whether two products differ in a specified attribute such as sweetness, crispness, redness, etc. Two differently coded samples are presented to each panelist simultaneously. The panelists choose the one that is perceived as more intense in the specified sensory attribute. The paired comparison implicates the forced choice, and therefore the judge must give an answer in any case. The chance probability associated with this test is 50-50, frequently used in preference tests. So here is an example of paired comparison test where mouth freshener with dates. Interpretation of results. By applying the statistical techniques to the results, it is possible to make inference about the product under test. Most large Finnish manufacturing good companies have departments by applying statistical techniques to the results, it is possible to make inference about the products under test. Most large FMCGs companies have departments dedicated to sensory analysis and analysis of the results. Many software programs are available today for the analysis of data regarding the sensory analysis. The statistical value will be meaningful only when the sensory evaluation is carried out in appropriate method. Spices and their sensory evaluation. Spices are indispensable food ingredients due to their unique flavor, color, and pungency. Spices possess medicinal and pharmacological properties and are used in preparation of medicines. Volatile oils impart the unique aroma, and oleoresins provide the taste of spices. The aroma compounds in spices that produce the flavorants used in the food industry are classified into functional groups like ethers, esters, thiols, ketones, aldehydes, amines, terpenes, and other miscellaneous compounds. Mixed masalas are complex mixture of spices and spice blends available for use. Sensory evaluation of mixed masala use is combined function of appearance, odor, taste, flavor, and texture. It is important to have an understanding of the individual profiles of the spices used in a mixed masala. Sensory analysis of mixed masala requires a certain level of expertise to detect the proportions and fractions of various spices used in the preparation of the blend. In a mixed masala, usually the perception of the presence of an individual spice depends upon the most volatile components and the ratios in which they occur in the blend. The type or grade of the spices present, for example, caryophyllene, available in rich black pepper oil, gives sweet fruity note, whereas high pinene content in black pepper produce a turpentine-like oil aroma. The fraction of the spices extracted using in the masala, for example, the characteristic flavor of ginger is perceived by the steam volatile oil compounds like monoterpenes are present, whereas the mouthfeel and the pungency is felt due to the presence of a non-stem volatile compound of ginger called gingerol. The state of the maturity of the spices at the time of the use in mixed masala, for example, a peculiar odor is observed when immature coriander seeds and its vegetative parts are used in blend due to an aliphatic aldehyde in the coriander oil, whereas a sweet and pleasant aroma comes from ripe mature coriander seeds due to presence of a monoterpene alcohol, linalool. The extent of the whole spices versus the extracts and the other volatile components used for the enhancement at the time of the manufacture of the mixed masala will affect the sensory perception of the spice blend. So we can conclude that sensory evaluation of the foods is a very complex and specific science. It has to be remembered that no piece of laboratory equipment can match the ability of human senses of taste, smell, touch, sight to gauge the subtle difference in the food flavor, taste, texture, and appearance. It is recommended that sensory evaluation always go hand in hand with instrumental analysis in laboratories and food manufacturing companies. That's all for this lecture. Thank you so much.